Hello, welcome to Behind the Filter podcast. I'm your host, Johnette Cruz, and today I'm by myself. I'm here to do a solo podcast today, just me. We'll have Ashley come back next week for our After Dark edition. And so today I'm going to talk about something just a little bit personal, something that I think a lot of people can really relate to. Just with the season of life that you may be in, and some conversations that I've had recently with just several other women. So it's basically, I want to talk about how it's never too late to start over. And I say that because I am 42. I have started my life over 3 times in my adult life. And I have started my life over in those 3 times in a very short amount of time as well. And currently I'm on number 3, and I feel like 3rd time's a charm. I'm finally feeling like I'm in the space that I need to be in right now. So I just kind of want to share a little bit of my background. And then I found some really good information that I also want to share with you guys as well. So I hope you find this podcast episode super interesting, and we'll go from there. So in regards to me personally, as I said, I've started my life over 3 times. The first time is when I got divorced, and that was back in 2019. And I was with somebody for a very long time, and I came back out into the real world. So it was literally starting your life from ground zero all over again. So that happened in 2019. Started again, in a new space, in a new era of my life. And kind of, I think when you go through major life changes, you really tend to rethink your life in general. It gives you like new perspective. You get very introspective about, the things that you have done and what you need to take in account in terms of what happened, and how you're supposed to move forward in relationships. And, it's a real kind of like deep dive on yourself. And you obviously, when things like that happen, you really sometimes need to take a step back. And so I did that. And after my divorce, it was really hard for me to figure out what I'm supposed to do with my life. And also I had to really face some things that I needed to take ownership for in my part. And so kind of, going back to square one all over again. So that happened in 2019. And then I ended up moving, and I opened up my own fitness studio. It was something that I thought I always wanted to do. And I felt super passionate about it. My entire life, I've always been a backup dancer. And I went into fitness after I got diagnosed with my autoimmune disorder. And I fell in love with the feeling of being strong and knowing that I can overcome anything in the midst of my immune disorders and my surgeries and my divorce and all those things. Like, fitness was always there. So for me, it just seemed like it was an easy thing for me to be able to work with other people and do all of that stuff. So, I did do the nutrition coaching. I competed. I did 5 shows in bodybuilding. I opened my own studio. I taught classes. I was a group fitness instructor, a fitness trainer. So I did all the things in the fitness industry, and I loved it. But I had something very traumatic happen to me the exact month I opened my studio. And because of that, I lost somebody, and I couldn't do it. I struggled that entire year because I was grieving. And I struggled that entire year keeping my life together, keeping the studio going. And it was just me. And so throughout that process, I realized I didn't like owning a fitness studio. I felt like I was stuck in a box. I felt like I couldn't really venture out and meet people because I was a one-woman show. And the overkeep and the cost and the expenses, it was just an insane amount. And so it ended up working out that towards the end of that first year, I decided to relocate. And so began the process of relocating, coming back to the other side of the city where I live. And it just ended up working out. I was able to get out of my lease. I closed the studio, started working out of several other studios. And so I moved back down. I was over on the south side of Indianapolis, moved to the north side of Indianapolis, came back down to the south side. And so that's why I would say like, that's my third time starting over, was kind of picking up, coming back, and, moving to a new space and trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. Because at that time, after, I moved back, I mentioned I have an autoimmune disorder. And at the time I was teaching like 15 to 20 classes a week that involved dance fitness, dance instruction, personal training, group fitness instruction. And my immune disorder was just not having it. So I really had to kind of pivot and think about like what I wanted to do with my life. And so that has led me here. So now I'm back in media. I still do fitness. I still love fitness. I teach just twice a week now, and I do dance fitness, and I love it. I'm able to do it on a weekly basis, but anything more than that, my body can't really handle. And so, I launched a podcast. I got back into TV, just doing all the media things. So that, in short, in almost 7 minutes, is how I basically started my life over for 3 different times in my life. And so I think I'm in the middle of the third time's a charm. And I think each time I've had to start my life over, it's been okay. It's been kind of like the first time everything happened to me, like when I went first through the divorce, like it was a huge shock of having to redo everything and all of that. And then when the second time came, and that was even harder. But like now when the third time came, I was like, it is what it is. Like, people, I think sometimes that I have a very nonchalant way of when like stress happens or when things happen, and when a normal person should be freaking out, I tend not to anymore. And I think it's just because of my life experiences. I've lived so many different lives that it does no good for me to freak out, to exert all this negative emotion when I know that there is a specific path for me and it'll all get worked out, and it is what it is. So I try to calm myself a little bit more. I don't go off the handle as much. I used to have this crazy emotional, I don't know, people like to say like the Latinas are so crazy. I'm like, well, we're just passionate. We're emotional. And so sometimes like that would happen with me, but now I know like that's what happens in life. And I've always learned in life, like if you don't go take those steps and do the dreams, like I had people when I started to do the fitness studio, everyone's like, why don't you just go get a 9-to-5 job? That's never been me. I've never been that person. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying for me and my passions and my personality and the things that I wholeheartedly love, that's never been where I've always seen myself. So when I did that, I was like, look, like I can't be opening a studio when I'm 60. Why am I not going to try that now? Why am I going to wait? This is the only life I have. Did it end up working out? No. Did I learn a lot? Absolutely. Do I regret any of it? Hindsight, there are bits and pieces, but for the most part, no. It has made me the person I am today, and I'm glad I took those steps, because I would have never known what I would have been capable of doing had I not decided to take those steps of faith and just went for it and tried to figure it out. And I think some of us are sometimes stuck in a box, and you have this certain like expectation of what your life is supposed to look like, how it's supposed to play out, and it just doesn't happen. Life's sometimes, right? And we sometimes don't get in that mode of, okay, like everything's gonna fall into place, and this is what's gonna happen, and then I'm gonna retire, and then I'm gonna live my golden years and all those things. Those golden years are not promised. And so for me, I would much rather do the things now, live the life as much as I can, and be in that space where I love and I live passionately, than waiting for 20 years to go by and then do it, because I don't even know if those 20 years are going to exist tomorrow. So that is kind of where my head is in terms of life. It has always brought me to the next step to all the things that I have needed or wanted to do within my life. It has not been easy. It has not been a walk in the park. Lord knows, and some of my closest friends know that I have been through it. But I think I've always just tried to like look on the brighter side of things. And I've always tried to look on the positive things or the things that impact me in a way that I can get something out of it versus negatively sitting in that emotion. I do sit in those times, but I try and move out of it pretty quickly. So all in all, what I will out of this episode, if you get anything out of this podcast episode, when you listen to it, is to just do it. Just do the thing. And if you fail, so what? And that depends. What is your definition of failure? Everyone's definition of failure, I think, is different. And to me, I don't like to say I have failed in things. I like to say I've had lots of learning experiences because it's true. You know, you don't learn unless you try. And so I just, I want people to know that like, it's okay to start over, and it's okay to start over when you're 40 and 41 and 42 and 45 and 50. Don't stop just because you feel like you're too old to do something. So that is kind of like me preaching just a little bit to all of you today. But that is kind of a little bit of my story in terms of starting over. Again, I'm in starting over my life number 3. And I always say third time's a charm because I'm still in it and I'm still growing and learning and there's things coming and I'm looking forward to it. So I actually came across a really good article that I wanted to share with you guys along with something else. And it is women sharing their stories of, you know, how they started over themselves. And these are women that are all age 40 and over. And I will actually, so with every podcast episode, there is a blog post and an email that goes out. So I will link these articles if you guys want to go back to them or share them with somebody. You can find all of that stuff. That'll be on JohnetteCruz.com. But I'm going to read you this one here. So this is a great example because my best friend Ashley, she's on with me every other week for Behind the Filter. We do our little girly talk edition called After Dark, and this reminds me of her. Not the age, but she's in her 30s, and she left her corporate career to do the thing that she was passionate about, and she's still in it. And she even talked about it in her stories a couple days ago about how she thought she would be in another space because she decided to leave corporate, and she thought she would just be somewhere different. And then, you know, she had her little pity party, and then she realized like she's happy, she's loving life, she's loving what she's doing. She's not where she wants to be yet, but she's growing, and she's already seen the advances that she has made this year versus last year. So that to me is a win, you know? And if I utilize that in my own life, this time last year, I was in a completely different headspace. And I feel like I am winning right now. Maybe not winning 100%, but again, you got to celebrate the small wins, you know? So I'm going to share this story. Her name is Kristen, and she left her corporate career for a dream job. She's 40, out of New Jersey. So she had a 6-figure corporate job in communications for the pharmaceutical division of a Fortune 100 company. So can you imagine that? Like, you are set. You are in a high corporate level job in pharmaceutical sales, in a 6-figure job at that. But she wasn't happy. She says, I felt like I worked nonstop all day, jumping from meeting to meeting with little to no time to do the actual work, let alone fit anything else into my day. When her husband asked what she wanted for her birthday in April of 2022, she came clean. I asked for his support in pursuing my crazy dream to leave my steady corporate job and to figure things out. And he agreed. So here she is, which I think is great. I know a lot of families rely on 2 incomes, and I think that's a really amazing opportunity for her husband to support her and to let her step into her passion and be able to leave something that probably provided them like a ton of stability. So she said, not sure of her next steps. She launched a podcast. It's called Build Your Own Fairy Tale. So she officially quit her corporate job in June of 2022. Today, her podcast has grown to more than 5,000 downloads, and she is launching an online business and management business. She says, I love making my schedule and choosing what and when I can work. Even more, I love that I'm hopefully inspiring my own daughters to follow their own dreams, no matter how crazy other people may think they are. And I love that because I have gotten that before. I feel like my entire adult life, everyone's like, why can't you just, I've had the comment of a person say, why can't you just be normal? Why can't you just go and get a corporate job? And kind of like gaslighting me into thinking I'm crazy. And I'm like, just because I am not doing what you do does not make it okay for you to come and say something like that to me. Like all of our lives are different. We're all gifted in different ways. And all of us have these amazing abilities. And I think it's a shame that some of us don't explore those gifts and those abilities, all because we may be potentially pleasing other people that in a larger sense of the matter have no direct impact on our lives. And I think that's really important. So there she is. So she's 40, left her corporate job and is now doing something super fulfilling, and she's happy about it. Okay, so then here is another lady. Her name's Courtney. She's from Virginia. She's actually 57. She started 2 businesses after her divorce. So she was married for 6 years before her life shattered around her. Her and her husband divorced, and both her parents had died. It was time for a major life change. Reeling from her pain, she moved away from the family farm where she had lived for her entire life. So she ended up buying a new farm. She fixed it up. She's doing horse shows now. She does clinics there. She also has set up a private practice as a therapist, seeing clients at her farm for therapy and her office for a traditional approach. So she completely did a 180, right? She got a divorce. She completely left everything she knew, and she moved forward. She says, with the big upheavals in our lives, we get a chance to do things we only have been dreaming of. If we can face our fears and use the energy that fear creates to help us move, we will find greatness on the other side. I love that. You have to push through. Like, make those dreams into a reality. And you don't know what's going to come of those dreams unless you try to do them. Today, she is grateful for the learning and the healing from divorce, death, and changes. Had these not happened, she wouldn't be where she is now. Believing in yourself is the key no matter the age. That's a true factor. Believing yourself is key no matter the age. I love that. All right, here is the third story. So this is Janet. And she just moved into her 3rd stage of life. That's so funny because I just said I'm in, I would say my 3rd season of starting my life over. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a stage, but this is her stage, her 3rd. So in her 1st stage of life, Jeanette, who is 52, or Janet, I should say, worked in the corporate world, focusing on consulting in the retail and apparel industry. She quit to stay at home with her twins that were born back in 2009. She lived just outside of Boston, never expected to have a 3rd stage. But in November of 2019, she discovered that her husband was having an affair and wanted a divorce. So the news, as you can imagine, completely crushed her. And they actually, she had the twins, and then she also had 2 other kids. So they had a total of 4 kids. She said, but having 4 kids didn't allow me to stay crushed forever. I had always been able to take on any challenge and plow forward, but this threw me completely off balance. After getting the divorce out of the way, she returned to school for her master's degree in organizational psychology, where she learned about proactive mental health. She's actually the author of Stop the Break and a founder of her company, which is called Cerebral Health, which focuses on slaying the stigma around mental health. Her mind is strong and clear. It's not that bad things don't still happen in my life, but I can more effectively deal with them and respond to what is happening rather than react. Okay, that I can completely resonate with. I think it's my life experiences that have caused me to change my reaction to situations. Because again, those reactions are negative. They make you overthink. They make you go in a world that probably doesn't even exist yet. And you start to think all these crazy scenarios about, things that could potentially happen when a trial or a circumstance hits you. And I know in my life, I have chosen to just react differently and not freak out. It lowers my anxiety for sure. And I think that's great that she's done that with her life. And to go back to school to get her master's in her 50s, that's absolutely amazing. So those are just 3 stories of women who are over 40 who have basically started their lives over. So again, this article is actually from thegirlfriend.com. I will link that in the blog post. And then there's something else that I have found, which I thought was absolutely amazing. This is actually from glamour.com. And it's women share how their life changed after 40. And it lists, I think, about 16 things, but I didn't list all of them. I only did, I would say, a few that resonated with me. And I think a few that would resonate with all of you as well. All of these are so relatable, I swear, because when I wrote some of these down, I was like, oh my God, this is me. First one, I chilled out. Okay. So again, women share how their life changed after 40. I chilled out. I created an offline room, puzzles, vinyl records, books, etc., because I was craving more solitude and quiet space. I cannot tell you how much I resonate with that right now in the season of life I'm in. I need peace and I need solitude and I need time to unplug. I need time I get very overstimulated. And that's so funny because I talked to Ashley about that. And I also talked to my boyfriend about it. We get very overstimulated on things and we need decompression time. But I find that to be so much more now in my 40s than ever. And I'm the girl, if I'm out, I am out. I am the life of the party. I'm having a ball. I'm having a blast. But then when I'm home, don't talk to me. So when she wrote that, I was like, wow, that's me. So that's number 1, I chilled out. Number 2, I slowed down. Totally feel this. Turning 40 made me allergic to complicated schedules and feeling rushed. My time and serenity feel more precious than ever. I politely decline more invitations, take my time, and apologize less for my intentional slower pace. I absolutely love that. For so long, I have been grinding and hustling and running all over God's creation and doing all the things and doing 5 million businesses all at once and just trying to keep up. And I think I have finally come to the season of life where I'm like, no, I'm not going to that event. No, I'm going to stay home and stay on the couch and be with my kitties and not move. No, I don't want to be social. I want to slow down and I don't want to feel rushed. And that's completely where I am right now. Number 3, I let that shit go. I stopped giving a shit about things I didn't give a shit about. I think that's probably one of the best things that I have found. I let that shit go. Why are you holding on to shit that doesn't matter to you anymore? Why are you holding on to shit that is either not going to change, or that relationship's not going to change, that person's not going to change, that entire circumstance is not going to go in the way that you want it to go? Let it go. All it's doing is affecting your mood, your peace, your stability, your thoughts in your mind, the way you react to situations. Let that shit go. It's exactly what I've been doing. I love it. Here's number 4. I prioritize sex. After letting my sex life take a back seat for a long time, I finally switched around some anti-anxiety medication that I suspected, not, obviously she wasn't feeling like she was able to want to be intimate with anybody. I know that has happened to people with different types of medication. She said, I also stopped caring about my abs. I have a very floppy and quite poochy stomach, and I always will. And I stopped following anyone, even pals whose Instagram accounts make me feel bad. I think there's a lot to this little paragraph here. So first of all, I prioritize sex. I know when women hit a certain age, apparently there is a decrease in wanting to be intimate and, wanting to have that connection with somebody. for me, it has actually done the opposite. Like I want that connection with somebody, and I'm it's a very big part of who I am. And I think, women need to embrace that in their 40s. Just because your body changes and just because things change in general does not mean that you should decrease that part of your life. Like sexual health for women is super important, and I'm a huge proponent of that. And I love the fact that she started to just say, you know what, this is my body. I'm going to let people accept it, and I'm going to enjoy the sexual life that I have right now. And I think that's great. This one is great. This next one says, I quit dating fixer-uppers. I finally found mature love with someone I never would have been in a relationship in my 20s or 30s. I used to look for excitement in my relationships, and I was always falling for men that I had to take care of or who needed something from me. I can definitely resonate with that. I have in the past have dated people that I would see potential in, but they exactly like weren't the person with the potential, if that makes sense. And so instead of me seeing for who a person was and is at that very moment, I saw who they could be. And like, okay, Johnette, bring it down to reality. That person is not who you're thinking that person is. They're not even close to that. So then, then you're like, oh, well, I can help that person. Or, I've gone through so much in my life. I feel like I'm in their life now for a reason, and I can help them move on and do the things. And you can't do that. You have to take people at face value. And that is one thing I have found in my dating history is people will show you who they are. You just have to clearly see it. And you also have to not make excuses for those person's actions as well. So yeah, I resonate with that as well. And I think also, I know we've talked about age. I think in my dating experience, I have dated men my age and who are just as immature as somebody that I would have an age gap with. So I really just think it depends on life experience with the person and, what kind of relationship that could happen. This next person talked about how she actually stopped drinking. After 8 years, I was diagnosed with ADHD. Then she had a baby. Then the pandemic happened. And so she said her solution was to have a couple glasses of wine every night. But between the ADHD, the stress, the alcohol, my brain just stopped functioning. Then I got a very senior job in a very high-performing culture, and I knew that's basically the alcohol is what she had to give up. So she cut it out, and without it, she can embrace everything in grace in all its forms, a sense of stillness as creative inspiration, and mostly important as forgiveness for the ways in which my brain works different. I can't say the word differently. There we go. I can resonate with that. I stopped drinking for a really, really long time. And that was because I was diagnosed with my autoimmune disorder, and I was taking lots of medication. And if you guys have listened to our podcast episodes before, you know that I started life very early, and I experimented with drugs and alcohol at a very early age. So when I got to adulthood, it wasn't a big deal to me anymore, and it didn't matter for me not to drink any alcohol. And then I got diagnosed with my immune disorder. And then with all the medication, I was honestly just kind of scared of what, the side effects would be. So I stopped drinking for a long time. Then the pandemic happened. And you're bored in the house, right? And you're stuck. And so then I started drinking, and then I started realizing, oh, I love tequila. And so there was a while where I was drinking. But then that also didn't help my anxiety either. So I kind of go back and forth with alcohol. I don't drink very much right now. I'm too busy working. And also still affects me a little bit in terms of my anxiety. So I like to have fun, and I like to have a good drinks. I still like my tequila, but, I can roll with that. I don't know. We've always talked about this. Ashley and I have always talked about this, that if we were in a relationship, we don't think we could date somebody who would never drink. I want to be able to enjoy a glass of wine with somebody. And I have done dates in the past where the men didn't drink. But it was for more other reasons. And to me personally, I found that a little bit troublesome. So I just couldn't do it. Okay, so here's another one. I had to ease up on the greasy food. Girl, preach. I started noticing that I can't eat whatever I want, especially fried food. Otherwise, I get nasty stomach pains. I swear, it's like when you turn 40, the most random things happen to your body. And like in general, the things that you used to be able to do in your 20s and early 30s does not apply in your 40s. It just changes the game. Like all of a sudden I had to become gluten-free and I'm like, what the hell? That wasn't a thing. And so many things. And so I agree. The greasy food for me, I no longer have a gallbladder. So it's very hard for me to digest anything like high fats and high with things with like a heavy dose amount of oil and that kind of stuff. This is another good one. My perspective shifted. I have enough lived experience to realize that everyone walks a tough path in life, and replacing judgment with kindness towards others and myself goes a long way. I have a much greater capacity for empathy, and it truly has made my life better. I love this. I have always said, as I fix my hair, I've always said, I am not a black and white person. I am so gray. It's not even funny. My perspective is completely different on other things. Obviously, there are hard yeses and nos to some things that I keep in terms of my morals and the things that I align with. But more so than not, I think outside the lines, okay? I don't veer one way or the other. I look at things kind of like from an outdoor perspective on the outside looking in. I'm very much the proponent of a person who says, unless you've been in that situation, can you really identify with that person? And with me being able to have empathy and I can pick up on people's energy and feelings and emotions pretty quickly, it has made me be able to sit into someone's experience a little bit more and kind of understand why they do what they do or why they think the way they think without judgment. And that is the most important part. I think the world is the way it is right now is because we are so quick to spout off, to respond without listening and thinking and asking some thought-provoking questions, and then to just spout off words that can absolutely be very detrimental to somebody. And then you can't take those words back. So in my life experiences, I have learned to sit, to be quiet, to listen, and to empathize with people in their situations, because I have eaten my words so many times when my younger self has said, oh, if that was me, I would have done X, Y, and Z. I'm sorry, but you don't fucking know until you're in that situation. And then when you're in that situation, then come talk to me about it. Because you know what? You're probably going to do completely opposite than what you would have thought you would have done, because you haven't been there. You haven't lived there yet. And so I think that is so important for people to understand. People think and operate based on their life experience and their environment, okay? So if you have not lived that life, if you have not experienced the things that that person has experienced, then you cannot understand why they think the way they think. You can empathize, you can sympathize, you can try to understand, but you will never fully grasp those person's emotions. And I think for somebody to completely disagree with somebody without any basis, you're just kind of doing a disservice to humanity in general. That's just how I see things. And so I love to be able to talk to people and to really understand them, because I've said this before in other podcast episodes, when you start to break things down on a human level, you start to realize you are much more alike than different when it comes to people that you would basically clash with. Obviously, we're going to have our differences. That's the way life is. And that's the way God has operated us, is to have free will, right? And to be able to think for ourselves. But I think there's just a way to handle things and situations, and to be able to, make a different assumption or come to your own conclusions based on what your perspective is on a person. And so I think that was really good. Let's see here. We have a few more. We're doing good here. Oh, we're at 34 minutes and I'm by myself. Apparently I can really talk. Okay, this next woman says, I let go of body BS. It didn't happen overnight, but after turning 40, I learned to value my body for the way it allows me to experience being alive in the world, rather than measuring it against some shallow and arbitrary yardstick of desirability. Ooh, oh my God, that is so good. I legitimately feel like that can resonate with anybody, even if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, because I think especially women, we are so hard on ourselves. I'm so hard on myself right now. I went I was very, very lean and thin for a good 5 to 6 years because I was training so hard for bodybuilding shows. And then I decided to stop competing, and then my immune disorder hit and I've gained weight, and I'm trying to accept what my body is doing with the weight gain and the hormonal changes and what my immune disorder is doing. And it is so hard to sit in your own body and be okay with it when you know you looked differently, but the lifestyle was also differently. Now I'm not working out 5 million times a day. Now I'm not counting my macros. Now I'm not starving, or I'm not craving, or I don't want to binge. I just eat what I want to eat, and obviously it's not getting, it's staying on. But I think that is a journey that every woman battles and goes through, is just trying to allow yourself to live life and not hold yourself like so accountable to those things. I think that there's a healthy borderline with trying to be healthy and work out and maintain and lowering your body fat and all those things. And I'm still trying to do those things. I'm still trying to figure out where my happy medium is. Like right now, personally, I don't feel happy where my body is, but I also know there are some things that my body's trying to figure out for this season of my life, and I'm okay with it. So I love that she said that. This one is also really, really good. This lady says, I put myself first. I'm much better at prioritizing myself, getting more sleep, setting boundaries, knowing it's okay to say no, and the people who are really important to me than I used to be. I feel like I'm far less self-conscious in my 40s too, which is one reason I started taking ballet again for the first time since college. I love that. That's so great. I think for a good part of women's lives, we put other people first. And I mean, it makes sense. If you're married, you have kids, your job, you are going to put a lot of other things first. And then unfortunately, like our health, takes a back seat, which then trickles down to like our mental health, our emotional irritability, the way we feel about our body, our wellness, like all of those things. And by prioritizing yourself first again helps you kind of realign yourself. And I think that's very, very important to do. And I love the fact that she said, I started taking ballet again for the first time since college. I was talking to somebody a couple days ago, and she's a teacher and she's been a dancer her whole life. And she's in her, I want to say she is in her late 40s. And we were talking about dancing because, I'm a dancer as well. And she's actually was a professional ballet dancer. So she knows all the technical things. And so she was saying how, she stopped dancing, and when she started back up, it was so hard because obviously your body moves differently now. You're not able to do the things you used to do in your 20s. And then she was like, and also some of those, technical things I don't need to do anymore. I did them. They were great. And now I wanted more for my mind. And I love that, her advice was just like, don't ever stop dancing. Because I haven't stopped dancing. I did stop dancing for a while when I was younger though. But I haven't. And so that was her one advice. She was like, just don't ever stop. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I will. I said, I think I'm giving my body the breaks it needs right now, but I don't think I'll ever stop. I think I will always continue, because obviously it does get harder with your age. You can't do the same things you used to do. But I think it also just helps your mind and your memory, and the movement in general is just so good for you and the soul. So I think that's great that this person decided to get back to taking ballet again for the first time since college. And I think that's good. Like, don't ever stop doing something just because it's your age. It just may look a little bit differently than what it used to look like, but you should be able to do it. So again, all of those, there was a couple more that was listed, but I just thought those were like super important and I could really resonate with them. So again, that is from glamour.com. And it's basically life advice after 40. I will actually, again, put all of this stuff in the blog post and in the email. And so that's kind of our podcast episode for today. I just want to leave you guys with this thing and I don't want to pigeonhole this and say it's for people who are over 40 or at my age at 42, because we all know that all seasons of life happen for various reasons, right? You may be in your 20s and you may be starting your life over and moving to a new job or a new city, or you may be going and getting your master's somewhere else. And so because of that, you're in a new space of life. You may be in your 30s and you're getting married, or maybe you're having your first child, or maybe you are going through a divorce, or you're going to be an empty nester. All of our lives and all of our seasons of life comes with the need to change and the need to evolve. And I shared a video on TikTok last week, and I just said in the caption, I put, "My life is defined by change." And it really is. My life has changed so much in all the seasons of life that I have lived, and all the past lives that I've had. And what I've noticed is that without the change, there's no struggle and there's no growth, and then you don't evolve. So you have to welcome those changes. You have to be able to embrace them, and you have to be able to embrace the unknown sometimes, because that's where the growth happens. And that's what you really start to see who you're made of. And so I just encourage those of you in any season of life, male or female, wherever you are today, wherever you're sitting in, to know that if you're questioning some things about your future or your next steps in life, just know that there's a plan for you. And if you have that little tug in your brain, I've said this before, if you have something in your heart and it's still tugging at you, it's something that you probably should do and explore. And I encourage you to do it. So with that, hope you guys enjoyed this week's podcast episode of just talking about starting your life over again, no matter the age, really. Make sure if you're not connected with us on social media, please make sure you do. We are basically everywhere. So we upload these videos on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're also recently on Substack. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, all those things. So make sure you follow, you subscribe. And if you have any questions, my DMs are always open and welcome, and so are my emails. So thanks for watching and listening to this latest episode. You can always find more details at JohnetteCruz.com, and we'll see you next week. Bye.